Welcome to today's Explainer. We're embarking on a journey into the microscopic universe that forms the absolute foundation of literally everything alive, the cell. Whether you're studying biology for the very first time or you just want a structured refresher on how life fundamentally works, well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to decode exactly what makes this microscopic unit tick.
So what is the basic unit of you? It's kind of a profound thought, isn't it? Whether we're talking about a tiny, single-celled amoeba just navigating a drop of pond water, or a wildly complex human being with a brain capable of contemplating its own existence, everything, and I mean absolutely everything, starts right here at the cellular level.
Okay, let's dive into this. The cell isn't just some passive building block, like a static brick in a wall. No, it is the basic structural and functional unit of life. That means it doesn't just give living things their physical shape, it actively performs all the necessary functions to keep that organism alive. It's basically a highly efficient, microscopic factory operating 24/7.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with discovery in cell theory, then move on to two types of cells. After that, we'll examine the cell membrane, take a tour inside the cell factory, and finally compare plant versus animal cells. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Discovery and Cell Theory, Uncovering the Microscopic World.
Our story kicks off way back in 1665. Picture this, Robert Hooke is looking at a super thin slice of cork under a really primitive microscope. He sees these little empty compartments and decides to coin the term cell. Soon after that, Anton van Leeuwenhoek actually becomes the very first person to observe living cells, and later, Robert Brown discovers the nucleus. But, it actually wasn't until the 1830s that Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann put the pieces together and realized that all plants and all animals are absolutely made of these cells. And that realization formed the very basis of cell theory.
Which brings us to an incredibly famous breakthrough from Rudolf Virchow in 1855. He said, omnis cellula e cellula. That translates to, all cells arise from pre-existing cells. Think about what that means. Life wasn't just spontaneously popping into existence out of thin air. It was an unbroken, continuous chain of cellular division stretching all the way back to the dawn of life itself. Mind-blowing, right?
Section 2. Two types of cells, the Great Divide.
Now, what's really interesting about this fundamental level of life is that organisms are structured in two vastly different ways. First up, we have prokaryotic cells. These guys are the primitives. They're smaller, simpler. Think bacteria. They don't even have a true nucleus. Their genetic material just kind of floats around in a region called the nucleoid, and they have these smaller 70S ribosomes, which are basically just tiny protein builders. But then we have eukaryotic cells. These are the advanced models you'll find in plants and animals. They're much larger, they feature a true enclosed nucleus to perfectly protect their DNA, they have denser ADS ribosomes, and they are absolutely packed with specialized, membrane-bound departments.
Section 3. The cell membrane, the city walls.
Okay, so if the advanced eukaryotic cell is like a bustling microscopic city, it obviously needs walls and security checkpoints, right? To understand these walls, we look at the fluid mosaic model, which was proposed by Singer and Nicholson. The membrane isn't just a rigid, boring brick wall. Actually, scratch that. It's a dynamic, actively moving phospholipid bilayer that's completely studded with proteins. Because the lipids and proteins can shift around freely, it's fluid. And with all those incredibly diverse embedded proteins, it's a mosaic. But here is the absolutely crucial part. It is selectively permeable. It chooses exactly what gets in and what gets out, perfectly maintaining the internal environment for survival.
So, how do things actually get across those selectively permeable walls? Well, there are two main ways. First is passive transport. This is basically the cell's free ride. It requires absolutely zero ATP energy, allowing substances to just naturally diffuse from an area of high concentration down to a low one. Easy. Active transport, on the other hand, is when the cell needs to push materials against that natural flow. And to do that, the cell literally has to spend its hard-earned ATP energy to pump those molecules across. It's a lot like pushing a heavy boulder up a really steep hill.
Section 4. Inside the cell factory, the organelles.
Passing through those membrane walls, we're going to start right at the very top of the factory, the nucleus. This is the absolute central headquarters. Completely surrounded by its own nuclear membrane, it commands all cellular activities. Inside this vault, you'll find the nucleolus and chromatin, which is made up of DNA and proteins. This is where the actual hereditary blueprint,
The literal master files that make you, well, you, are safely locked away.
Stepping outside headquarters, we hit the cell's primary assembly line. First, we have ribosomes, those tiny non-membranous structures, working hard to synthesize fresh proteins. Then, those brand new proteins catch a ride on the transport network of the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or rough ER. Oh, quick side note, there's actually also a smooth ER without ribosomes that handles lipid manufacturing instead. But back to our proteins, they finally arrive at the Golgi apparatus. This is the factory's shipping department. It packages everything up and secretes these materials to wherever they're needed in the body.
But a factory needs power, right? Enter the mitochondria. You've probably heard it called the powerhouse of the cell, and for good reason. It features a double membrane, where the inner layer folds into these complex structures called cristea, and this brilliantly illustrates the exact site of aerobic respiration. It's where the cell generates all that vital ATP energy we were talking about earlier. And here's a wild fact. Mitochondria even have their own entirely separate DNA. They operate almost like a tiny little organism living right inside the cell itself. No way, right?
Now, there are a few other critical departments keeping this microscopic city running smoothly, so let's run through them real quick. Lysosomes are the demolition crew. They're affectionately known as suicidal bags because their superpotent enzymes digest and destroy damaged organelles. Then we have vacuoles, which act kind of like water towers. They're storage sacs that are absolutely vital for maintaining internal pressure. The cytoskeleton is the architectural scaffolding, basically a network of protein fibers giving the cell its shape. We also have centrioles, which help animal cells divide, and cilia or flagella, which act like tiny little motors or tails to propel the entire cell forward.
Before we wrap up our factory tour, we absolutely have to mention plastids. Now, these structures are completely exclusive to plant cells. The most famous one, for sure, is the chloroplast. Containing grana and stroma, these green plastids are the sole reason plants can perform photosynthesis. They're real game changers. Plants also utilize chromoplasts for different colors and colorless leucoplasts for deep storage.
Section 5. Plant v. Animal Cells, Nature's Two Blueprints. Let's move to our final comparison and see how this all builds together. We've seen all the organelles, so now we can look at how nature organizes them into two distinctly different yet highly successful blueprints. The contrasts are pretty striking. Plant cells need serious structural rigidity to stand tall, right? So they have a tough cellulose cell wall. Animal cells? They don't. Plants make their own food using the sun, so they have those chloroplasts we just talked about. Animals definitely don't. Plants also require a massive central vacuole to maintain their internal water pressure in a fixed shape, while animal cells have much smaller vacuoles and a much more irregular, flexible shape. But hey, animal cells aren't missing out completely. They have those centrioles, specifically for cell division, which plant cells generally lack. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to consider this final thought. Inside your body, right at this very moment, trillions of these tiny, unconscious, microscopic factories are operating, each one flawlessly executing the incredibly complex processes we just discussed, from ATP production to active transport, and they are all working perfectly together. And the end result of all those unconscious cells working in absolute harmony? A conscious you. It is the stunning display of biological engineering. I really hope this journey has given you a clearer understanding of the profound complexity of the cell. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.